Keep watching The Politics every Friday.
Let's go with Eric. From Manhattan's bright lights to Brooklyn's vibe, the Bronx's spirit, Queens' diverse tribe, Staten Island's charm, we're all in this crew. Eric Adams leads with a vision so true. Jobs in the city, he's breaking that ground, creating opportunities, hear that hopeful sound. Transportation smoother, our streets come alive, digital advancement, watch our future thrive. Eric Adams leading the way, pour une meilleure journée à New York. De qualité pour que tout prospère, on y croit.
Imagine a media platform that reshapes the conversation, empowers your voice, and redefines the Bronx community. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative. For businesses, politicians, and government agencies, we offer targeted advertising solutions that drive results. Amplify your message. Reach the heart of the Bronx and beyond. Our platform connects you to the community. Learn more. Email info@bronxpost.com or call 718-892-5555. Visit www.bronxpost.com for breaking news and updates. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative.
Welcome to Talking Politics. My name is Robert Press. I'm a reporter, as you can see by my official New York City press card. I write for the Bronx Post and the Parkchester Times. Both like this show are part of Parrot Media Corporation. I also contribute to the Co-op City News. I have a blog at www.100%.blogspot.com. And Facebook pages 100% and what is going on in your local community board. The views expressed on this show are those of the host, any guest, or anyone commenting at the bottom of the screen, and not necessarily that of Parrot Media Corporation. And if you saw our ad at the beginning, that ad is not necessarily that of the host. Let me go on to the weather now. Today, Friday, it should get up to about 84. Then temperature plunges to 72 tomorrow on Saturday, 73 on Sunday, 74 on Monday, and the 80s return on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then back to the 70s at the end of the week. It appears that the Manhattan casino proposals for Caesar Palace in Times Square by S.L. Green and the Aviar near Hudson Yards at Silverstein Properties were both rejected by their neighborhood elected official CAC committees, bringing an abrupt end to the multi-million-dollar developments. That leaves only 6 proposals: Empire City, and there's the east side of Manhattan, Ferry Point, Bronx, Metropolitan Park in Queens, Coney Island, and Resorts at Aqueduct, of which 3 of these 6 will be chosen by the end of the year to be a full-scale state casino. City health officials warned of a potential measles exposure in Manhattan this weekend after 2 New Yorkers tested positive for the virus, but said the risk to the public remains extremely low, so be careful if you go into Manhattan. Now, we have to give congratulations to Councilwoman, East Side Councilwoman Christine Marmorato of the 13th Council District, because it appears that Mayor Adams' administration is backing off a hotly debated supportive housing program for ex-offenders from Rikers Island in the Northeast Bronx at Jacoby Hospital. City officials said Thursday they are looking for a new location for the project at the Jacoby Hospital campus, intended for the formerly incarcerated who need to be near medical services and would likely otherwise be homeless. New York City Health and Hospitals, which controls the land, submitted the proposal to the City Council earlier last year, but it stalled amid staunch opposition in the surrounding neighborhood, including from Councilwoman Christy Malmorado. Now, in an apparent response to these objections, the administration wants to change course. The city is developing a new proposal that would identify a different location for Just Home. And I think it's important that we note we are committed to finding that location, Diane Savino, a senior advisor at City Hall, said at yesterday's hearing. It appears that senior housing, which is greatly needed in the 13th Council District, or a different kind of supporting housing, will be put at Jacoby. Now, as far as the world news, let's go to Israel and give you a timeline of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who landed in Jerusalem on Saturday as the Trump administration scrambles to de-escalate growing tensions with Israel following its strike against Hamas leaders in Qatar last week. Rubio was in Israel with further talks Monday, meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu by the Western Wall for talks about the war and the remaining hostages. On the ground, the Israeli bombardment continues, with the military hitting 30 residential buildings in Gaza City on Sunday alone. Rubio said that the diplomatic end to the war in Gaza may not come, throwing cold water on the idea that Hamas will negotiate surrender. Speaking with Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a news conference, they presented a unified front as frustration over Israel strikes have grown across the region. And within the White House, we are focused on what is happening next, Rubio said. Rubio briefly stopped in Qatar before meeting Trump in London. In the news conference, Rubio called on Qatar to continue as a key mediator to end the war, while Netanyahu did not rule out the possibility of future strikes, saying Israel will target Hamas wherever they are. And a massive new Israeli offensive got underway in Gaza City Monday night after Secretary of State Marco Rubio departed. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said the Israeli military is striking with an iron fist at the terrorist infrastructure. Associated Press reported that at least 20 people were killed in a night of heavy strikes. Israel has been warning the famine-stricken Gaza City residents to evacuate for the past month ahead of the operation, but many have said they are unable to evacuate due to overcrowding in Gaza South and the high price of transport. Trump has grown frustrated with Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over his preference to use military force over diplomatic negotiations. Still, Trump doesn't agree with the European-led pressure campaign against Netanyahu, though he's not going to lose sleep over it. And lately, the Israeli military opened a new route out of Gaza City as it steps up an aggressive ground offensive. Palestinians are reluctant to leave for fear of being displaced or starving. Reuters reports the Palestinian deaths so far since the start of the war has surpassed $65,000, it's reported. As President Trump stood alongside British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and his this one's going to be a good one, at his Keir's residence this morning, the two leaders aim to promote their unbreakable bond and long-standing relationship between the United States and the United Kingdom. And though the two leaders were generally complimentary of each other, cracks over the war in Gaza are putting pressure on putting pressure on Russian President Putin left Trump and Starmer standing apart on some of the most pressing global issues. He's really let me down, Trump said of Putin, with Starmer slamming the Russian leader for ramping up his attacks on Ukraine following attempts to bring about a peace deal. Putin has shown his true face, Starmer said. But Trump repeatedly emphasized that the war in Ukraine doesn't affect the United States, a comment bound to cause headaches among European leaders. At one point, Trump even said that the UK was not directly affected, prompting pushback from Starmer. Political reports, we have to put extra pressure on Putin, Starmer said, as Trump pushed the ball into Europe's court to cut off oil imports from Russia. On that front, the new movement of sanctions may be coming soon. The latest package of sanctions against Russia is being presented to the EU countries following a Tuesday call between Trump and EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. The most obvious cracks are in the special relationship that came about the war in Gaza, as the UK is set to recognize Palestine as Palestine statehood in the coming days. It appears that New York Attorney General Letitia James had better mend fences or pay up. It appears James is set to appear before an administrative law judge on October 8th, where she faces up to a $500 fine for having a 5-foot 6-inch high fence in front of a multifamily house in the Clinton Hill Historic District. The brownstone is the focus of a federal mortgage fraud investigation. The city buildings department slapped James with a summons July 23rd after finding at least 3 anonymous complaints since April, which claimed that the black iron fence exceeded the 4-foot limit, height limit. Records show New Yorkers are tired of double standards, and all public officials, including James, must follow the rules like any other New York homeowner, said City Councilman Robert Holden. If the DOB summons and mortgage questions are accurate, Attorney General Letitia James should bring the fence into compliance, pay any penalties, and be fully transparent. No one is above the law, added the Queen's Democrat. James can avoid the fines if she removes the fence and lowers it to a legal height by September 26th. Residents in the tree-lined block nestled between St. James Place and Grand Avenue said they were unaware James was breaking any rules. One neighbor pointed to another house on the block with a high fence. The U.S. Department of Justice has been investigating allegations James committed mortgage fraud by falsifying records to receive loans, favorable loan terms on Clinton Hill property, and another one she co-owns in Virginia with a niece. She slammed the fraud allegation as baseless and claimed they were a direct result of a long history of legal battles with President Trump. Moving on to a incident that happened yesterday at Federal Plaza. More than a dozen city and state elected officials were arrested while participating in a protest at the federal building that houses immigration courts in Lower Manhattan. New York City Controller Brad Lander, State Senator Jason Brisbard, Julia Salazar, Gustavo Rivera, and Assembly members Carol Gallagher, Gonzalez Rojas, and Martinez, and Valdez, Simone, and Raga were arrested by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security agents after attempting to gain access to the 10th floor of the building, which U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has turned into a makeshift detention facility. In addition, public advocate Jemani Williams, Assembly member Piera Suffolk Forrest, and New York City Council members Nurse and Caban were arrested by New York City police outside the building. The elected officials inside the building had requested access to the 10th floor, a spokesman told City of State. She said that those arrested outside the building had attempted to peacefully block a garage that serves as an entry and exit point for vehicles used by ICE to transport immigration detainees. The 11 elected officials who were arrested inside the building were taken up to the 30th floor where they were processed and released. Each one was issued a misdemeanor violation notice stating that they had violated 41 CFR 102-74.390 in parentheses B, which prohibits unreasonably obstructing the unusual use of entrances, foyers, lobbies, corridors, offices, elevated stairways, or parking lots, and told they will be mailed a federal court summons. You can find on my blog a note from State Senator Gustavo Rivera about this. He is proud that he has gotten that he was detained. As far as the focal point for the generational inter-party battle, California is emerging at the focal point as the state's older House Democrats are set to face same party challenges next year, Political reports, while similar challenges are unfolding in other blue states like Massachusetts and Maryland. The same party struggles is especially striking in California, a Democratic stronghold with a culture of perverse dissatisfaction with politicians who have been in office for decades. As far as the budget goes, State Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is preparing for a confrontation with President Donald Trump over government funding, insisting Democrats won't avert an October 1st shutdown unless Republicans agree to reverse some Trump policies. And locally, as far as the Long Island Railroad possible strike, President Donald Trump has formally stepped into the ongoing contract fight between the MTA and the 5 Long Island Railroad unions, assigning an emergency mediation board to try and resolve the dispute. And I'm going to stop right here and go to my commercial. When we come back, I'll have some information about recent endorsements of mayoral candidate Zohan Madami and what other people have said about that, along with a couple of other items, including the ballot issues. So let me go to a commercial right now, Mr. Producer.
New York City, too far to turn back now. From the Bronx to Staten Island, from Brooklyn to Queens to Manhattan. Together, we've built hope, progress, and safety. And together, we will get the job done again. Let's get the job done again. Hey, hey, let's keep this city strong, my friend. Hey, building bridges, breaking chains. For every borough, every name, let's get the job done again. Hey, hey, let's get the job done again. Hey, the city never sleeps. The lights are burning bright. From uptown streets to downtown nights, we face the storm. We've stood our ground. A stronger, safer New York we found. Bronx beats, Brooklyn dreams, Staten pride, Manhattan gleams, Queens rising. Together we stand, every voice, every heart, every hand. When the city calls, we rise as one. The fight ain't over, the work's not done. Hope in our hearts, truth in our stride. For New York's future, side by side. Let's get the job done again. Let's keep the city strong, my friend. Building bridges, breaking chains. For every borough, every name. Let's get the job done again. Let's get the job done again. Voices rising in every street. Justice marching with every beat. Safer schools and
Imagine a media platform that reshapes the conversation, empowers your voice, and redefines the Bronx community. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative. For businesses, politicians, and government agencies, we offer targeted advertising solutions that drive results. Amplify your message. Reach the heart of the Bronx and beyond. Our platform connects you to the community. Learn more. Email info@bronxpost.com or call 718-892-5555. Visit www.bronxpost.com for breaking news and updates. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative.
Okay, welcome back. I see Mayor Adams has bought some time on here. If other candidates want to, they just have to go to the number at the bottom of the screen. Let me get into the 6 ballot proposals before we lose them, since I'm running out of time. The 6 ballot proposals that will appear on your ballot in November are Proposition 1 is a statewide proposition about the Adirondack Forest Preserve. The next 4 questions are on the city ballot concerning housing development. Proposition 2 would fast track affordable housing in neighborhoods that have built the least by cutting out the city council vote. That would mean that the council members in that district would not be able to veto it or have any say about it. Proposition 3 would fast track small development proposals by bypassing city council. Again, the same thing. Prop 4 would create an appeals board that could overturn city council decisions. And Prop 5 would modernize and digitize the city maps under city planning, taking away power from borough presidents. And last, Proposition 6 would start the process of moving city elections to presidential years. That would mean that every other year you'd be going to the poll site. So let's say next year you'd be going for assembly state senate, Congress, and governor, they would add the city elections on an even year. So then the following year, there'd be no elections. Then the year after that, you'd have all the elections against president, Congress, Senate, state senates, assembly, and city would not be there because they're in the 4 years. So Proposition 6 looks like it's going to cause a lot of problems. I would advise you to vote against Proposition 6 and basically all propositions that are on there, because if they were any good, they would have been included already. Now, let's get into Governor Kathy Hochul, who has endorsed Zohran Mamdani's bid for New York City mayor. She did it over the weekend in a letter to the editor of the New York Times. She writes, "We've had our disagreements, but we're in our conversations. I heard a leader who shares my commitment to a New York where children can grow up safe in their neighborhoods and a lot of other BS." Hochul, a moderate Democrat, sees that she has to endorse Mamdani because she has a left-leaning opponent in her lieutenant governor, which Antonio Delgado, who is running against her. And if she didn't endorse Mamdani would be with Delgado. But there is not saying anything because Mamdani has not cross-endorsed Governor Hochul. And the Republican response by Republican Chair Ed Cox says, the worst governor in America defends the title. In a four-way race, Kathy Hochul has just endorsed an avowed communist and anti-Semite for mayor of New York City. It's no wonder Kathy Hochul's New York continues to lead the nation in out-migration. New Yorkers are fleeing Democrats' worst in the nation tax and regulatory regime, as well as their open embrace of extremism. She is the worst governor in America, and she defends the title. There is the comments by her proposed opponent next year, Republican opponent, Congresswoman Elsie Stefanik, who says, as I always said, it was only a matter of time before the worst governor in America, Kathy Hochul, would bend the knee to the communist anti-Semite Zohran Mamdani. There's more on there, but I'm going to get to the fact that State Controller Tom DiNapoli endorsed Mamdani's bid Tuesday, making him another member. And the press release says latest member. But after DiNapoli's endorsement, Bronx Democratic, Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie, a Bronx Democrat, formally endorsed Mamdani on Wednesday as the dominoes are falling in line. And I expect Congressman, or I should say House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries to endorse Mamdani, and we'll see if Schumer has the balls to stay and say, I'm not endorsing Mamdani. Now, Lieutenant Anthony Delgado wants to play party builder as he tries to wrest Democratic gubernatorial nomination away from the incumbent Hochul. Delgado's campaign will hold a webinar-style meeting on Monday, September 22nd, hosting officials and allies to show how he wants to build out a Democratic infrastructure to areas the state party has ignored. About 700 people are expected to be invited to the launch of his effort to form a robust, modern, collaborative, and functional state party with the sole mission of electing Democrats of all stripes at all levels in all corners of the state, according to Delgado's campaign. Delgado, though, is exploiting a potential Achilles heel for the governor, who currently holds a massive poll lead over him. It was meant to be a major change for the party that was previously an appendix of the governor's own political aspirations and came after a dreadful 2022 for New York Democrat House candidates. That's when they lost control of the House of Representatives. If you get up into the North Country, these are county committees that are hanging on by a thread. Caitlin Ogden said, chair of the Otsego County Democratic Committee, if you entirely pull out of a county and say, this is done, we're never going to win here, and we're never going to go win here again. County chairs stipends of a few $1,000s, but money is restricted to those so-called housekeeping, like office rent or stationery. Ever since the 2022 debacle, there's been more demand for resources. Putnam County Chair Jen Colombico said there's been a lot of lip service, but very little delivery. Democrats have also watched with envy as As I said, Congresswoman Elsie Stefanik, a possible gubernatorial hopeful, is doling out cash to local Republican candidates, yet Hochul's allies insist efforts to bolster down ballot candidates have been fulsome. State GOP, State Republican Chair Ed Cox on Wednesday said that Congresswoman Elsie Stefanik will formally launch her gubernatorial campaign soon after the November elections. She's got a very good advice from Governor Pataki, Cox said, and the advantage of entering a race more than a year out lets you start raising money earlier. But she doesn't need that. She's a very prolific fundraiser, so she doesn't need to declare early to do that. He's optimistic about the party's prospects in 2026. He says Republicans are not going to have a primary next June, letting Stefanik immediately focus on November. This is a 62-county state. You have to make sure Republicans are continuing to do well, she said. After this November, I'm looking forward to making my announcement. Meanwhile, State Democratic Party Jake Jacobs released a statement that he won't be endorsing his own party's nominee for mayor of New York City 4 days after Governor Hochul gave out the pro-Mandami message. Two top donors to the super PAC supporting Mandami's New York City mayoral campaign, although worked for a tech company with alleged ties to the Chinese Communist Party. And as Mandami heads into the general election, a vocal group of far-right Hindi nationalists have launched an Islamophobic campaign to paint him as anti-Hindi. And New York City Brad Lander has been telling people he wants to be the first deputy mayor should Mandami win the general election. But the mayoral candidate, Mandami, has told him to knock it off. Now, mayoral candidate Mandami doubled down on his commitment to arrest war criminal Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu if he comes to New York, even after experts told the New York Times such an arrest was a political stunt and would raise legal issues. Mandami said he would do the same about anybody with a warrant from the International Criminal Court that includes Russian President Vladimir Putin, a top military leader, as well as Taliban leaders and more. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo says that Zohan Mandani would have no legal authority to arrest Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu or anyone else as mayor of New York City and is exploiting the issue to score political points. A mayor doesn't do American foreign policy, Cuomo said at a press conference in Manhattan. We have the UN. When Putin comes to the UN, you don't arrest Putin because you don't like Russia. Cuomo called Mandami's threats hyperbolic rhetoric used to amplify his discontent with Israel. If elected, Mandami has pledged to have the New York City police arrest Netanyahu if he enters New York City to stand up to international law. That's weaponizing the justice system, Cuomo said. I don't like you politically. I'm going to arrest you. That's illegal, unconstitutional, and anti-American. It's the exact thing we complain that the federal government is doing. Cuomo, a longtime supporter of Israel, called for the end of the Israeli-Hamas war, saying that the situation has become horrific. However, his support of Israel remains firm. As far as Republican candidate Curtis Lewa, he says, I feel like I'm back in 2013, as he told reporters on yesterday, reflecting on the sudden prominence of the debate over horse-drawn carriages and charter schools in the 2025 mayoral race this week. The push by animal activists to ban the carriage rides won former Mayor Bill de Blasio support when he first ran in 2013, but he failed to get the job done. The movement, backed by the advocacy group New Yorkers for Clean, Livable, and Safe Street Night Class, has a champion in outgoing council member Bob Holden, who sponsors legislation that would ban horse-drawn carriages. But the issue has failed to gain traction in the council and faces heavy opposition from Transport Workers Union 100, which represents carriage drivers. The ban got an attention boost, however, after Mayor Adams urged the council to support legislation and issued an executive order that purports to prioritize efforts of the industry in preparation for an eventual ban. At a press conference outside the Hub activity in Central Park, Sweeler called it positive as late development and urged other mayoral candidates to follow suit. Mayor Eric Adams, and this will probably be my final piece as my time is running out. No, I'll have one more piece after this. That boys and girls should use different bathrooms as he vows yesterday to look into the Department of Education policy that provides students with facilities that correspond to their gender identity. My utmost importance is to ensure that children are in school. They're in a safe environment. I do not believe a safe environment is allowing boys and girls to use the same facility at the same time. It's allowing them to be in the same restroom at the same time. I would use whatever power I have to stop that, Adams said. The Department of Education rules do not impose restrictions on students using restrooms conforming to their gender identity, and Adams has virtually zero power over the situation, DOE rules say. Because the mayor has essentially zero chance of changing the rules, his comments appear to be another effort differentiate himself philosophically from the mayoral field he faces re-election. While he insisted most parents, especially those with daughters, agree with him, he drew immediate comparisons to President Donald Trump, who has been threatening school systems, New York City's included, that allows trans students to use bathrooms that align with their gender identity. As Zohan Mandami has shied away from his support of dismantling sex work during his mayoral run, while Democratic Socialist colleagues in Albany are pushing it forward, honestly, I haven't spoken to Mandami on it, said State Senator Julia Salazar, who's sponsoring the bill to legalize prostitution. As people learn about sex work and the positive impact on public health, especially on women of color or immigrant women of decriminalization, I think they will become more supportive. Salazar and Assembly member Farrah Suffolk Forrest, who's sponsoring the bill in the Assembly, spoke with Playbook at the premiere of Sex Work on Tuesday. It's Just a Job, a documentary about a campaign to decriminalize prostitution in New York State. The case is one Mandami previously championed, and he is a co-sponsor of the Assembly bill known as Celia's Law. But with the mayor's race in full swing and under pressure from his opponents, Mandami has said getting the bill passed into law wouldn't be part of his legislative agenda as mayor. More recently, he said he would look to how former Mayor Bill de Blasio approached sex work under de Blasio's administration. The NYPD reduced arrests for prostitution charges that de Blasio endorsed decriminalization in its final months in office. Mandami's opponents have attacked him on the issue. Former Governor Cuomo held a press conference saying that allowing prostitution would allow them to proliferate and would be bad for women. And Mayor Eric Adams made an appeal to Muslim voters. As Muslims, you don't believe in prostitution. This candidate does. He said at a campaign stop at a Bronx mosque, which New York One reported. Sex work advocates had campaigned for decriminalization for years, scored a major legislation win in 2021 with the repeal of Walking Wild Rand's law, which stopped arrests for loitering for the purpose of prostitution. The chances of legalized efforts will pass in 2026. Doesn't look good, though, given that Kathy Hochul facing re-election, likely against Republican Congresswoman Elsie Stefanik, who also slammed Mandani on supporting decriminalization. Asked about it last month, Hochul said she doesn't think there needed to be any changes to the state law and that decriminalization is not something I support. Salazar said she'd keep fighting. I hope to see it move through the Codes Committee, which our local Bronx State Senator Jamal Bailey is the chair of. So if you don't want it, or if you do want it, write to State Senator or call State Senator Jamal Bailey's office. I don't have his phone number here or the address. He's on East 233rd Street, right across from Dunkin' Donuts. Good place for a state senate office. And he is, like I said, the Codes chair, and it's going to be going through the Codes Committee with State Senator Jamal Bailey as the chair. I'm going to wrap it up here. And if Mandami is following Bill de Blasio, you can see where we're headed. And I just hope he doesn't try and take another $1 billion like de Blasio's wife did. We never found out where that $989 million went that was supposed to go for treatment. And I'm going to wrap it up right there and say Thank you for watching and have a good day. I'll see you next week here on Talking Politics.
Let's go with Eric. From Manhattan's bright lights to Brooklyn's vibe, the Bronx's spirit, Queens' diverse tribe, Staten Island's charm, we're all in this crew. Eric Adams leads with a vision so true. Jobs in the city, he's breaking that ground, creating opportunities, hear that hopeful sound. Transportation smoother, our streets come alive, digital advancement, watch our future thrive. Eric Adams leading the way, pour une meilleure journée à New York. Healthy lives, éducation de qualité pour que tout prospère, on y croit. La sécurité publique d'abord main dans la main. Avec la police, on se tient bien, baisse de la criminalité. Ensemble on s'unit, des communautés fortes, portant des fils de vie. Quality education, every child deserves. Schools that shine, where passion preserves. Eric's vision keeps our future bright. For every New Yorker, he's our guiding light. Eric Adams leading the way. Pour une meilleure journée à New York, il est là. Safer streets, healthy lives. Éducation de qualité pour que tout prospère, on y croit. This November, let's make our voices loud. Vote for Eric Adams, let's stand proud. For more. From Manhattan's bright lights to Brooklyn's vibe, the Bronx's spirit, Queens' diversity thrives. Staten Island's charm, all part of the crew. Eric Adams leads with a vision that's true. Eric Adams leading the way por un futuro mejor en NYC hoy. Safer streets, healthier lives. Calidad en educación, donde todos pueden brillar. Public safety first, con la policía en unidad. Crime rates down, comunidades con dignidad. Mejor atención médica para cada corazón. Acceso a cuidados de norte a sur, esa es la misión. Quality education para cada niño y niña. Escuelas brillantes con maestros que enseñan. Eric Adams asegura que el futuro está claro. Para todos los neoyorquinos siempre estar a tu lado. Eric Adams leading the way por un futuro mejor en NYC hoy. Safer streets, healthier lives. Calidad en educación, donde todos pueden brillar.
Imagine a media platform that reshapes the conversation, empowers your voice, and redefines the Bronx community. Bronx Post, changing the reality, changing the narrative. For businesses, politicians, and government agencies, we offer targeted advertising solutions that drive results. Amplify your message. Reach the heart of the Bronx and beyond. Our platform connects you to the community. Learn more. Email info@bronxpost.com or call 718-892-5555. Visit www.bronxpost.com for breaking news and updates. Bronx Post, changing the reality.
Keep watching The Politics every Friday.